today we are doing an NFL mock draft. Because what else do you do this week? Like you can't talk about anything else, right? Like it has to be just it's NFL draft, it's rumors, it's mock drafts, it's smoke screens, it's all the fun stuff, right?
Apparently, it's
Everybody
talking
hates
about
that.
Vegas lines, which were just like double counting. It's like everybody says, maybe JJ McCarthy is going to go too. And then everybody bets a bunch of money on JJ McCarthy going too. And then they say, look, the sports books have said JJ McCarthy is going too. Like there's some insider like sitting in this like dark cigar smoke filled room that knows all the ins and outs. No, it's just Vegas is reacting to the money that's coming in. I'm so sick of all of this double counting that because people think this is going to happen and then the sportsbook lines move to say it's going to happen. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, people. Do we not remember Will Levis last year? All right, sorry.
It was
Got on my
Will Levis
soapbox
last
way
year.
too early on this show.
No, but it's so true. First of all, I love this idea of a villain just kind of sitting in a dark room, ashing his cigar on the seat of the Vegas
Right.
couch that's there because every Vegas couch has cigar stains on it. And then Will Levis last year, best odds to go number 2 overall. CJ Stroud was not expected to go in the top 7. I mean, it was nuts. Like
Yeah.
last year was just kind of stupid. And so you know what? Let's just bring all kinds of more stupid. Let's do a mock draft. I mean, people are gonna hate it no matter what. Like we could get 32 out of 32 picks correct, and people would be like, "That was stupid. My team would never do that." Still remember the year I was like, "Yeah, Steelers probably gonna take Kenny Pickett." Tons of comments. Even the people here in football guys like, "No way,
Oh, I
that's stupid."
remember. I was on that
Yep.
show. You got dragged for that one. You
Yeah, that
got
was like my
dragged.
second. That was like my second thing that I had done with football guys. I was like, "Well,
Mm.
this was fun while it lasted. I'm out."
Joe Bryan almost fired you. He's like, did this
Yeah,
idiot
it should
really
have been.
just mock Kenny Pickett to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I should have been. All right. So the way we're going to do this mock draft, Dave and I are going to go back and forth. Dave, I'll let you start off since the Bears have the number 1 pick and you got a really tough decision there. We're going to go back and forth. We can make trades. We have to approve the trades, obviously. If you want to make a trade with a team you already can control, then, whatever. Have a little fun. Let's live a little, man. Like the draft is here. Let's just do something stupid. All right. You ready to start, Dave?
I'm ready to start. And you said
You
that we
ready?
could get all 32 picks wrong. I'm going to give us a little bit more credit than that. I think we're going to get 31 picks wrong because this first one, Caleb Williams going number 1 overall, that is an absolute smash. I don't think we need to talk about this too much. We've talked about Caleb Williams a ton throughout this whole pre-draft process, everything that he can do, his ability in the pocket, his ability in the structure of the offense, his rushing upside, the off-script plays, everything he can do. He is the easy pick here. It seems like the Bears have kind of been set on this since before the drive or before the combine. Like we heard rumblings in Indianapolis that the Bears were just infatuated with Caleb Williams, regardless of him not testing or anything like that. We saw Keenan Allen show up to the pro day at USC. I don't think there's any question here, despite the rumor that you may have seen going around on Twitter yesterday that the Bears are now torn between Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy. No, it's Caleb
Stop.
Williams. I swear, I'll send you the tweet.
Stop.
Yeah, we need to
That's
stop
disgusting.
this this faux journalism that we're seeing all over Twitter these days, where anybody with 10,000 plus followers can just say whatever they want and it gets tens of thousands of likes. But yeah, the rumor swirling yesterday in these NFC North streets was that the Bears are closing in on possibly selecting JJ McCarthy.
That's legitimately hilarious. Yeah, I mean, listen, you already talked about how the Bears they've been set on Caleb Williams. I think that really the team who has been sitting here on the clock with the number 1 pick is the next team, the Washington Commanders, because everyone has known Caleb Williams is going to the Bears. So the Commanders, all this like late movement and the rumors that Jayden Daniels was not happy with. By the way, I think of the most hilarious quarterback visit ever where they took, what is it, like all 8 or 6 or however many of these guys to Top Golf and just put them in a group environment and had them play against each other, which I would
Low key
100%
kind of
do.
genius.
I would
I
I
like
did
it.
that. I've done that before. When I owned a business, I would bring in everybody for a group interview because it allows you to see like who stands out, how they deal with other
Yeah.
people, how they deal in awkward situations. Like there's so many things that come out of this. You just get people in their element. It's not just some weird, formal process where it's an interview or a dinner or something like that. So
Based off the
I
reports of how this went, you almost like think that like Jayden Daniels was like sulking in the corner, texting his agent, like, "Can you believe this BS?
yeah.
They've got me here." Like, I don't know if it was that bad, but that's like the reports made it sound like JJ McCarthy is just telling jokes and lighting the crowd up with laughter and just winning the crowd. I would have loved to see how that actually worked out because I can't imagine that it would really change their opinion that much.
No. And like I think it's just one of those things where it's an agent maybe just getting a little overzealous and putting things out there just for the sake of it. What I will say here is I personally, if I was running the Commanders, I would be taking Drake May number 2.
Yeah.
However, that is not what this mock draft is. It is what we think will happen. I do still think that the Commanders have their sights set on Jayden Daniels. I think there is an allure to the Heisman winner, to having this phenomenal season, to seeing that he can be successful with good wide receivers. And I know that sounds really weird to say, but there's always been kind of the stigma of, oh, that quarterback played with good receivers in college. And well, guess what? He's going to have good receivers in the NFL caliber receivers. And that's what Jayden Daniels is stepping into in Washington. I think there's enough Cliff Kingsbury sauce on this offense that they think they can make any quarterback really good and overcome some of the shortcomings. And Dan Quinn, one of the things he keeps talking about is deep ball accuracy. That is Jayden Daniels' number one trait. So I'm going with Jayden Daniels here for the Washington Commanders. He's still the odds-on favorite for the Commanders at 2. Dave, you are now on the clock with pick 3 for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of has 2 and 3 going in some flip flop order here. Even with
Yep.
like the JJ McCarthy smoke that we're getting at 2, guys, his odds have improved to 11-1. Like it's not like people are saying he's the favorite to go to. He's still 11-1 to go to. So I don't think that's going to happen. So Jaden Daniels too. That makes Drake May the third pick. I don't really have too much to say about this one. I think most people kind of expect this to happen. Jacoby Brissett is actually kind of a nice bridge quarterback, I think. You know, he has looked good in flashes over the last couple of years, whether it was with Indianapolis or whether it was with Washington, and even during his time in New England. Now, this is a barren roster. I mean, this team is really headed into a hardcore rebuild. First year without Bill Belichick in a while. I don't know if we see Drake May start week 1. And I think that's fine. We've seen a lot of
Yeah.
young quarterbacks get their development ruined by going in way too early, just getting thrown into the fire. And right now, if you look at this roster, I mean, Kendrick Bourne, Pop Douglas, KJ Osborne, Juju Smith Schuster, they're names that we know, but it's not a good receiving core at all. So I think the smart move here is to draft Drake May, kind of let Jacoby Brissett steer the ship for as long as he can. Maybe let him may get some reps later in the season, but I think Drake May is a pretty easy pick here.
So let's say Washington drafts Daniels, New England drafts May. Who are you ranking higher for fantasy purposes and for dynasty purposes?
Daniels easily, and even if Daniels
In both.
does go 3, I prefer Daniels, even though May would have the better situation just because of the rushing upside. There are very few quarterbacks that can rush for 800 plus yards in a season. You got Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. I mean, Josh Allen has some rushing, but he's never really going to hit that 800,000 plus yards. Justin Fields, if he's starting, we know he can get there as well. But I think Jaden Daniels immediately becomes a top 3, top 5 rushing quarterback.
I'll say this. I know I'm putting myself out here like this. I am a big Drake May fan. I do believe in his longevity a bit more in the NFL. Drake May is no slouch in the rushing department either. We're talking about a guy who in 2022, 700 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then 2023, 9 rushing touchdowns. So like there's always the hyperbole, right? Of he's another Josh Allen. There is a lot of Josh Allen to his game. Like this is a guy who can do it. Not in the same vein, not as good, but there's still plenty of that. So
I'd cap his
I
rushing to CJ Stroud, where he like is athletic and he can pick it up, but he's not a guy that you're going to
um
design rushes for like you see with Josh Allen.
I think he's better. I think he's better than CJ Stroud. I'll
All
say
right.
that. I think that the gap Jaden Daniels' gap for rushing is like it's astronomical. Like I do get that. Like
Yeah.
he's the guy that's going for like 1,000 yards. Like he's giving you the Lamar type, Michael Vick type rushing that you need. That's gonna be an interesting one to follow, man. I think that once we get those landing spots, we are going to dissect the heck out of these quarterbacks. Cardinals are up at 4. And there's a lot of talk about Monty Fort wanting to trade out of this pick and that he did it last year. He'll do it again. He's the goofy meme. I'll do it again. Like, I don't think he's doing that. I don't think there's going to be a movement here from pick number 4 because there's such an incredible player on the board here. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think that you look at that player on the board for Kyler Murray, for this offense, as a guy that you can build around, a guy that can be a cornerstone of your team for years. And you say, you know what? Let's move back a bit. I don't see it, and I don't know if there's going to be a team that's really moving up that high for JJ McCarthy unless the Vikings are doing it. And I mean, Dave, you had control of the Vikings there. Were you moving up?
I don't think so. I'm not buying into it. I think, they can probably get
Not to
McCarthy a little
4.
bit later. Yeah, I don't think they need to move all the way up to 4 to get in. So
This might be the spot now.
yeah, I think the Cardinals pretty easily are going with Marvin Harrison
Okay.
here. And I want to talk about real quickly Kyler Murray now, full over a year removed from his ACL tear. And right now, when you look at dynasty rankings, I mean, he's still just 26 years old, and he is ranked behind Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, Justin Herbert. This is a guy that we know also has elite rushing upside, is a phenomenal passer. And if he has this duo of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison catching
Oof.
passes, I think we're way too low on Kyler Murray. I mean, all he has done when he's been on the field is give us top 5 quarterback production on a per game basis. And I mean, he's one of those guys right now. If I've got a Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, if I could trade back, get Kyler Murray and add more to that, I'm doing it because as soon as we all know Marvin Harrison is likely going to Arizona, but as soon
Right.
as that actually happens, we're going to see Kyler Murray just shoot up dynasty rankings. So you got a few days to try to buy him while you still can.
So let's talk about that. I'm looking at our dynasty rankings right now. You've got Kyler as your quarterback 9. Justin Herbert still at quarterback 7. Is that something that would flip flop for you the moment that Marvin Harrison is on that team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you, Alfredo. I haven't updated my dynasty rankings in about a month. But yeah, I'm not totally panicking on Justin
Okay.
Herbert yet. I know there's a lot of talk about how this is just gonna be a smash mouth run first offense, and maybe it will be. But also, when you look
Right.
historically, Justin Herbert has been one of the most phenomenal passers ever to start his NFL career. He's still got the age in his favor ahead of Kyler Murray as well, so I'm pretty confident in that take. But I would be okay trading back if I can get Justin Herbert, if I can flip him for Kyler Murray and another starter, maybe a wide receiver 2, maybe an early second round pick. I'm making that trade.
Okay. Well, you're on the clock now at pick 5,
Right.
and the Chargers look like the team to trade back. Is
Yeah.
this what you're doing here?
And that's what a lot of people are anticipating is a trade back here from the Chargers. Again, we have talked, and I do expect them to be a run first, smash mouth type of offense. I think Justin Herbert can still be successful in that offense, but right now
Mhm.
they need O line help, and I realize they need wide receiver help as well. This roster right now has a lot of spots to fill, but I think they're going Joe Alt here, and this is a pure gut pick. This man is just a freak when you look at his measurables and his athleticism, and I think that's what Jim Harbaugh is really going to want in this Chargers offense. So I'm going with Joe Alt here.
All right. So you take Joe Alt for the Los Angeles Chargers. That puts at pick 6 the New York Giants on the clock. And there's a lot of talk here that this might be the team that drafts JJ McCarthy if he falls. I wonder if a little bit of that is just like all the smoke screens going around, trying to get teams ahead of them and to trade with the Chargers to go get JJ McCarthy. Um, However, let's see. Let's see. Where are the Vikings at? Vikings are at pick 11. Hmm. Dave, you're the
Hmm.
Minnesota Vikings here at pick 11.
And they
You
also
want you
had
want to move up?
Yeah, and I think that the writing has kind of been on the wall. The Vikings traded for another first round pick about a month ago, and having those 2 firsts puts them in a position to move up for JJ McCarthy. So talked about them potentially moving up to 4, but this is what I said. They can probably move up to 6 here and still get the guy that they wanted.
All right, so we're doing this. I'm Joe Shane. I'm ready to move back. I'm not going to draft JJ McCarthy here. I'm ready to move back. Minnesota, what are you going to give me?
What
We're
did we have for
going.
this one? I
You
can't
have
even
you have
remember.
picks
Yeah,
11 and
Pelix
23.
11 and 23 for 6. Yep.
All right, all right. Let's do it. Let's lock it in. 11 and 23 for pick 6. This shut up. 13% chance to be accepted. We're forcing it. We're gonna make it happen. This is our mock. Let's get stupid. All right. So Minnesota Vikings have now moved up to pick 6. They're going with the quarterback. JJ McCarthy here.
I mean, I think we
Bang. All
both
right.
kind of have our, I don't want to say concerns, but I mean, JJ McCarthy's still young and didn't have a lot of production in college, but landing in a spot with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, it's pretty hard not to get excited about that. We always say, like, don't get swayed by landing spots, but it's a darn good landing spot.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is like I've been hearing a lot of the interviews with Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, and it's funny. There was actually even a thing where he was in his church, like a church service the other day, and someone stood up and started asking him a question about faith and what you can change and this and that, and then straight up turned it into Drake May versus JJ McCarthy. And it's a really funny clip. And Kevin O'Connell handled it with such poise when he's answering this question. Um, he basically turned it into like we know what we can correct and started talking about footwork and the pocket and things like that. And it was such a beautiful moment where this guy took something from faith and God and all that and just turned it right into footwork. And it seems like they do have kind of an idea of these are the guys that we want on our team. These are the quarterbacks we'd be comfortable with. JJ McCarthy feels like it's that line, and they want to be able to trade up to get one of those guys. And if this was kind of the last opportunity to do it, I think this is exactly what the Minnesota Vikings set themselves up for.
Yeah.
All right. We got pick number 7 here. Tennessee Titans are on the clock. And this, I think, is another good trade spot, Dave. You're in charge of the Tennessee Titans.
I'm also
I'm
in charge of the New York Giants. So I'm going to make a
well,
trade
I'm
here. The Giants are wheeling and
okay.
dealing right now. The
All
Giants
right.
just traded back from 6, and now with Tennessee on the board looking to trade back. This is kind of crazy to think, but I think maybe the Giants use this as an opportunity to move up here. So what I'm going to do is, as the Giants, offer picks 11, 70, and 166 to move up to this spot at 7 with Tennessee.
Oof. All right. So it's 11, 70, 166 for pick 7.
Hmm.
So the Titans are going to be basically they're picking up a third rounder and what I believe is what a sixth rounder here or
Yep.
fifth rounder
Fifth. Yep.
to move back 4 spots. All right. Let's do
Says
it.
they're not interested in trading for this. I'm a little surprised
Yeah,
because
but we don't
this
we don't
seems
care.
like a primo spot for them to try to move
Primo.
back here. And this is something, again, you look at it right now, the Giants are in desperate need of a wide receiver one. I ran this by a few of my Giants friends, and I said, if this happened, if they traded back and then moved back up and landed Malik Nabers here at 7, how would you feel? And the resounding feedback that I got is that Giants fans would be pretty excited about this. So Malik Nabers, the guy that we've talked about, is kind of the wide receiver 1B, maybe to Marvin Harrison. If he falls to 7 here, there's going to be a lot of people on the phone with Tennessee looking to move up. And I think that if Tennessee can drop back, still staying inside the top 12, they're going to be a little more likely to do that. So Malik Nabers here going at 7 to the Giants.
All right, locking it in. Malik Nabers to the Giants. And I wonder how much of that too you talk about like your Giants friends, like how much of by the way, it's Giants friends, like fans that are friends that are fans of the Giants, not that
Yeah,
you
not
have
my
like
friends that are
friends. Yeah, yeah,
Giants.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just wanted to clarify. Just wanted to make sure. How much of that though is Giants fans sort of romanticizing the hey, you remember when we had OBJ? Remember how cool that was? LSU receiver, similar style,
Mhm.
just a phenomenal route runner. How much of that is them just maybe romanticizing that and thinking Daniel Jones could be our Eli? He could do it.
I mean, I think we might be seeing some Drew Lock starts this year in New York. I don't
Yikes.
know if Daniel Jones is really the answer there. And that's the thing, there's 5 QB needy teams inside the top 10, and there's really only 4 quarterbacks that are projected to kind of be starters. So you look at it, if Minnesota moves up, the odd team out here is going to be the Giants not getting the quarterback they want.
For what it's worth, I think it's a great pick. I think I like this is the kind of move that you've moved back. The Giants have now picked up pick 70 and they end up, or excuse me, they trade pick 70, but they move back. What did they pick up in the last one? They got to
Um,
pick 23, right?
23, yeah. So they tack on a
Yeah.
late first. So
So they
they
get
get
pick
Malik
23,
Nabers,
move
they
back a
get an
spot
extra.
essentially,
Mhm.
and
And,
get their guy.
the pick at 23 that they end up with will be pretty nice as well. So, yeah, I think this is kind of the dream scenario if you're a Giants
That's
fan.
that's a draft winning move right there.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of thing that when the Texans did that last year and they moved around and they moved back up and you're like, what? They're pick number 2 or pick number 3, and they
Mhm.
end up getting Will Anderson and CJ Stroud together. This would be a great move by the Giants. This would be kind of the thing that helps turn them around. All right, pick 8. I'm up here for the Atlanta Falcons, and this seems to be like one of those that's etched in stone. There are a few people that believe this will not happen, but this seems to be the pick that is etched in stone, and it's the edge rusher Dallas Turner from Alabama going to the Falcons. They do need help a few different fronts here, defensive line, corner, and it's all over the defensive line and secondary. Actually, edge, corner, D tackle, safety, all of it. I think they're going to go with the guy who's honestly one of the better athletes in this class. And I just don't think there's going to be a big overthinking. I do think that one of the top corners, like a Quinyon Mitchell, is also a possibility there. So let's recap. Let's recap these top
Just seems
8
like a
picks that
Raheem
we have
Morris
here.
pick is that they're going
It
to have
does.
Dallas Turner
It
there.
does, man. It really does. Let's recap these top 8 picks that we had here. At 1, Chicago takes Caleb Williams. 2, Washington goes with Jayden Daniels. 3, New England goes with Drake Maye. 4, Arizona takes Marvin Harrison Jr. 5, the Chargers go with Joe Alt to establish the run. And then at 6, we had a trade. Minnesota trades picks 11 and 23 to the Giants for pick 6. They move up, take J.J. McCarthy. And then at pick 7, guess what? Giants are moving again. They are going to trade picks 11, 70, 166 to Tennessee for pick 7. And they take Malik Nabers. And then at 8, the Falcons go with Dallas Turner, the edge rusher. So we got our top 8 picks. We still got a bunch more. But before we get into those, Dave, I believe you're on the clock at 9 for your Chicago Bears, so start thinking about it. But before we move on to that, we've got our 100th episode coming up. This is episode 99. So this is already a fun one. We got a huge event coming up, the NFL draft. But the big event, the other big event that's happening is going to be in Nashville. And that is myself, Dave, Jagger May, Joey Wright. We all 4 are going to be live in person. Fancy cameras, fancy lighting, fancy mics, all of it. We're going to be together for the 100th episode of the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. We're going to have some giveaways. We're going to be giving away 2 spots to our listener league. And that's also going to come with a free Football Guys subscription for a year. So the way that you enter to win that is make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, leave a review on Spotify or Apple, and then send a screenshot to abrown@footballguys.com. Okay, once again, leave the review on either Apple or Spotify. Send the screenshot to abrown@footballguys.com. All right. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed to the podcast, I'm going to put the link there in the comments down below for you to be able to do that. And guys, I mean, every single review that you give us helps a ton. So give us a few words there. Give us some feedback. Tell us what you love or don't love about the show. 5 stars always appreciated. All right, Dan.
How do you feel recording in person? Like, people on YouTube are going to see us below the nipples for like the first time ever. It's just been here up for 99 episodes, and now you get the whole package.
Yeah, well, crazy, man. So first you start with nipples as your line of demarcation for video.
Well, I was looking to see
all
kind
right.
of where we were cut off. I mean, it's collarbones.
Well, mine are like always out. Like it seems like I'm very self-conscious about it. So I'm gonna hold my shirt like this. But I don't know, man. Like I haven't really thought about it too much. But now you're making me feel weird about it. I got to wear like special pants or something. I'm actually wearing pants today.
I was going to say you have to wear
plus.
pants, which is a big change for this show. All right,
big plus.
109. I think
big plus. All right, 9th pick.
I think this is the dream scenario for Bears fans, and I know there's a lot of talk about potentially moving down here from 9 because if you look overall, you know the Bears only have 4 draft picks, and it just so happens that 2 of them are inside the top 10. So a lot of people are looking at this as an opportunity to trade back, acquire some day 2, day 3 picks, but man, if you can take Caleb Williams 101 and pair him up with Odunze at 109, that is just a dream scenario. And I know they went out and they spent that 4th round pick on Keenan Allen this year. Keenan Allen is going to be great for the development of the younger wide receivers in the room. He's going to be great for the development of Caleb Williams, getting open immediately off the line and on those underneath routes. We got to call it like it is. Keenan Allen, no young spring chicken. You know, he doesn't have a ton of years ahead of him right now. He's probably at best kind of a 1-year Band-Aid. Odunze is obviously a rookie. They get him on that rookie contract, allow him and Caleb Williams to develop together over the years, have DJ Moore also there as well, still just 26 years old. That is the kind of 1-2 punch that you want to surround your young developing quarterback with. So a lot of people want to trade back here as Chicago fans, but if Odunze is on the board, I think they got to take him.
All right, Odunze locking it in at pick 9 for Chicago. I'm on the clock. Pick 10 for the New York Jets. And as a Dolphins fan, I really just want to, I don't know, give them someone who doesn't make any sense, like a 5th round center. But, you know, there's been a lot of talk about, do you take a tight end in the top 10? Is it worth it? Right? even when it's a special guy like a Brock Bowers or a Kyle Pitts, or whenever we see these incredible athletes come through, is it worth it to take these guys? And I think like one of the questions, specifically with the Jets, is does that tight end help you win now? Because that's what you have to do. You have to really focus on this window that you have with Aaron Rodgers. I think that a guy like Brock Bowers helps them win now. I think they could also look at offensive tackle here. I know that the Jets went out and they added a couple of linemen. There's never enough linemen, and that is a very Joe Douglas thing to do, to continue to get offensive linemen. But I'm going to go with Brock Bowers here. I think this is a special player who does not just fit the regular mold of a tight end. I think he's that guy, like we talked about with Danny Kelly a few weeks back. He fits that Joker role where he can move around and be anywhere on the field. I think he's going to alleviate pressure from guys like Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson. It might take a few targets away from them, but it's going to alleviate pressure and allow for some bigger plays. And I think that offense is going to be moving a lot better up and down the field. You got to imagine whatever pick they make here, there's going to be some heavy influence from Aaron Rodgers on these picks. You think
Mhm.
that's the case, Dave?
Yeah. And he hasn't historically done great with tight ends. It's weird. We always see these like random, like one-off years. Jermichael Finley, when he was young before injuries kind
Right.
of ended his career. Jermichael Finley was kind of the outlier throughout Aaron Rodgers' career. We had the one year where Robert Tunyon caught, what was it, like 10 touchdowns or something crazy like that. But outside of that, he's never somebody who's really fixated heavily on the tight end. But Brock Bowers is that kind of new age tight end where he can just line up predominantly in the slot, run a ton of routes. I think it does make sense here. It wouldn't surprise me if they do end up going O line, but Brock Bowers is a totally expected pick for the Jets at 10.
All right. That puts you on the clock. Pick 11, Tennessee Titans. What are you thinking here?
Now, when the Titans were on the board at 7, this is who I had them taking, projected to take before they traded back. So it works out for them because they were able to acquire additional draft capital, trade back, and still get the guy that they would have taken at 7. This team is desperate for O line help right now. And we don't have to go too deep into the weeds here, but Tylese Fuaga is the best offensive tackle on the board. And I think that's who they end up taking at 11.
All right. That gets me on the board here at 12 with the Denver Broncos. And I'm not going to lie. When I was sitting there, I knew I had the pick with the Denver Broncos at 12. I highly considered trading up to, I don't think that the Chargers would allow the Broncos to trade to 5 to go get their quarterback. So if the Broncos do trade up, it had to be in a situation where they could go to 6 where Tennessee was. And I think that Minnesota just has too much to give them right now with these 2 first round picks. And so the Broncos, I think you're kind of stuck where you're at. And I don't think that this is a spot yet where they want to take a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix. However, they do need a lot of help on that defense. They do need pass rushers. And Laiatu Latu is absolutely phenomenal. He is one of these guys that when you throw on the tape, he just doesn't lose reps. Whether he gets the sack or not, he does not lose. He's always generating pressure. He's a guy that does have some questions about injury. So you could see him go this high. You could also see him fall to late in the first if some injury stuff comes out. However, he is a player that I think for many people when this draft evaluation process started might have been the defensive end number 1 for them, and it was considered a top 10, maybe even top 8 pick. So to get him here at 12, I think it's a good fit for the Denver Broncos. Dave, that puts you on the clock at pick 13 with the Raiders.
And I just want to say, a lot of people are saying that like the Broncos are going to try to do whatever they can to move up for a quarterback, and they might. We got to remember this is the year where they're eating like $80 million in dead cap. Like
Yeah.
they have to just kind of, you know, just deal with it this year. I don't think there's any position to win or anything. I think their sights are already on the 2025 draft, so I think they're going BPA here, which clearly is Latu, and then that kind of sets them up to be in a position in 2025 where they can grab Shador Sanders or Quinn Ewers or whoever it is they decide is their QB1 next year. But I don't know if they're going to go all in on a quarterback this year. So that leaves me at pick 13, and this is the wildest, wonkiest pick that we have in this mock draft, I think. But if there's a team that you expect to make a crazy unhinged pick, it's going to be the Raiders, right? So we've heard a lot about how the Raiders are just infatuated with Michael Penix, and there's rumors that he is starting to move up the board a
Oh.
little bit. The Raiders do have that pick in round 2, but I think
Is
this
that
is
what you're
where they
doing?
see all of the quarterbacks go off the board. They're sitting there at
Oh,
pick
no.
13. I think they panic and they take Michael Penix here at 13.
All right, Raiders fans, let's hear it in the comments. Michael Penix, 13. Listen, I don't dislike Michael Penix as a prospect. I would not be drafting him in the top 20.
Oh, neither would I. Neither would I. I want that to
Um,
be clear. This is what I
I'm
expect the teams to do, not what I
yeah, yeah,
would do.
right. And we cannot reiterate that enough. I will say this. I think maybe gone are the days of the crazy Raiders picks that like we were always thrown off. Their new GM is Tom Telesco, who had been running the Chargers for a while, and he was always very much a best player available kind of guy. We never saw him reach on players. However, there was a big difference. They got their one lucky time where they were up in the top of the draft, able to select Justin Herbert. And throughout the rest of the time with Philip Rivers, they didn't have to worry about quarterback. So we have not seen this. We don't know what could happen here, especially if all the quarterbacks go early and the Raiders don't have the ability to trade up. There are the rumors too that they could be one of the secret teams that moves up if Jayden Daniels falls to pick 3, that they might be swapping picks with the New England Patriots because of that connection that Antonio Pierce has from Arizona State with Jayden Daniels. Dave, how likely do you think that is? Like, is that something that if you saw one, how likely is it? And then 2, if Jayden Daniels ends up on a team like the Raiders and they move up and they mortgage everything to go to pick 3, how excited or worried are you?
I mean, it's possible, but there's so many teams that want to move up into the top
Right.
3. You've got the Raiders wanting to move into the top 3. You got Broncos wanting to move into the top 3. You got the Vikings wanting to move into the top 3. The Giants potentially wanting to move up there as well. And the reality is there aren't that many spots. I mean, there only one team
There's
is
only
going to be
3
able to do
actually,
that.
turns out.
Exactly. And once you take the Bears off the table, and once you take either the Commanders or the Patriots off the table, you basically got 4 or 5 teams that are vying for one spot to move up. So it's possible, but I'd say it's like a 10-15% shot realistically. I think with Minnesota having the multiple first round picks in this year's draft, that makes them most likely to do it. But this scenario where we kind of had the Giants trade back, grab that first, and then use that to move up as well, that's another interesting way that this can kind of unfold. But yeah, I just don't know if the Raiders are going to be the team we see actually jump up.
So that's 5. Dude, that's 5 quarterbacks in the top 15. I feel like we mock this every year. Everyone predicts it every year, and it doesn't really happen. Like there's every year we always hear and see the headlines. Could 4 quarterbacks go in the top 4? Could 3 quarterbacks go in the top 3? This is the year that I do think the 3 happen. I'm going to be very
Let-
intrigued to
Let's
see where these quarterbacks land.
let's call it like it is. And we do this every single year. And we're doing it again this year. Quarterbacks and wide receivers are sexy. We know the quarterbacks, we know the wide receivers. Those are the guys we talk about. And then every single year, you get these guys like offensive linemen you've never heard of. Who was the guy that the Patriots drafted like 2 years ago that people
Cole
are like,
Strange, baby,
what? Yeah,
Chattanooga.
Cole
Go
Strange.
Nuga.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we get
Nuga.
these guys going in the first round and we're like, who the heck is that? And, you know,
Oh, it's going to happen.
it's going to
It's
happen.
going to happen.
Absolutely. But we like quarterbacks and wide receivers. And that's why we say there's 5 quarterbacks going and 7 wide receivers going when the reality is it's probably going to be like half of that.
Have you seen there's an offensive lineman from Houston, Patrick Paul, a prospect who I'm not gonna lie, like I've been doing plenty of draft research, had not seen that name before. And now the reports going around that he is saying people are going to be surprised at how high I go in the draft because a lot of the teams in the first round are telling me they have a first round grade on me. Uh, that's a new one. Guys that are reporting their own draft stock. That's interesting, but I don't think it's off. I think that we're going to find someone, just like you said, that you're just like, who? And they're going
Yeah.
to go in the top 32 picks.
Six
It's going to
seven
be
three
nuts.
fifteen. That's a big boy.
That's a big boy. I can't wait for this draft, man. I can't wait. We're just snacking on nonsense and getting fat. All right, I'm up at 14. New Orleans Saints. We need offensive line. We need a player who can either play inside at guard, outside at tackle. There's some struggles with Trevor Penning. Ryan Ramchick's getting a little bit older. Those are the two two bookend tackles that the Saints have right now. Guard is rough. They're fine at center with Eric McCoy. I'm going to go lineman here. I'm going to go Troy Fautanu from Washington. I think this is a guy that they can just plug in immediately. Listen, if you're going to go with Derek Carr and that's your guy, let's just give him some time then. Like, let's just make this offense a little bit better. Let's get some good offensive linemen. Faltanu's a beast. I like that for them there at 14. Dave, you're on the clock at 15 for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, in the Indianapolis Colts right now, they've got a need at quarterback. Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo is the best cornerback on the board. So
You
again,
freaked
not
me
getting
out because I thought you said at quarterback for
it
a
almost
second.
sounded like quarter. I
I
think I
was
might have
like,
said quarterback. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, Dave has no idea what he's saying. All right,
No, no,
keep
what I
going.
really want to happen, we talked about this on the show with Danny Kelly a couple weeks ago, is that Brock Bowers slides to 15 and Shane Steichen can kind of use Brock Bowers in that Dallas Goedert role where they're just
Yeah.
feeding him screens and slants and getting the ball in his hand at the line of scrimmage. But Bowers is off the board, and I think they end up going with Quinion Mitchell here if this is how it falls.
Yeah, Quinion Mitchell was so good throughout this process. And I mean, this is a guy that I think there's more people started to discover him and realize how talented he was, myself included. And there was a time where we were saying, and it still could happen, he could go as high as number 8 to
Mhm.
Atlanta. Like, I don't think that's out of the question. I think that he's a realistic prospect for, let's say, maybe Tennessee still, wherever
I
they
mean,
move,
there's like 3 guys
Denver,
on the board right now that are
Las Vegas.
potentially going inside the top 10. And, we're trying to
Yeah.
read the tea leaves here, but there's a lot of talented guys right now that could be top 8, top 10 picks, could fall outside of the top 20s.
This would be a phenomenal pick for the Colts. Like, that would be you
Yeah.
did great. You won your draft already here at pick 15. All right, at 16, I've got the Seattle Seahawks, and Seahawks need a little bit of everything. They could use some interior offensive line, edge rusher, linebacker, safety. I do think that it's very possible the Seahawks trade back. They've done that a lot where they've moved around, and I think this could be the spot where someone that wants a Brian Thomas moves up, like maybe a Buffalo Bills trade with Seahawks. That feels like the perfect fit where the Bills will move from 28 to 16 with Seattle. It's teams that are in separate divisions, teams that, the Seahawks really, they want to just pick up more picks. The Bills probably want to get a weapon for Josh Allen and compete right now, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to let the Seattle Seahawks make their pick here because a very good player is still on the board, an edge rusher that has the ability to play some linebacker if needed in just a fun defense for them. Jared Verse, the edge rusher out of Florida State. I think that if he is there on the board for them at 16, it's going to be really hard for them to say, let's move back and let's just get some more players. If there's a good player, it's too tough for me as Seattle to move back.
And this is another guy that we're talking about, going off the board at 16. And I've heard Bears fans pounding the table for taking him at
9.
9. So this is
Yeah.
another one of those guys that could easily be a top 10 pick that we have fallen to 16 right here. There's a lot of talent in this draft. That puts me up at 17. And you just mentioned this guy's name, Brian Thomas. I think it's just such a good fit here with them letting Calvin Ridley go. Brian Thomas can just immediately step into that Calvin Ridley role. And I think that he's more suited for that role than Calvin Ridley was. They have Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram kind of working across the middle of the field and on the shorter and intermediate routes. And Brian Thomas can get deep and stretch defenses vertically, much like they used Calvin Ridley for last year. This one just makes so much sense. And if you look right now, every sports book has Brian Thomas's draft pick over under at 16 and a half. So I think this is kind of where people expect him to go. I think this is just a match made in heaven, bringing in another young receiver to pair up with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I think this is the easiest pick of the draft. Is if Brian Thomas falls to 17, Jacksonville just immediately turning in a card with his name on it.
Yeah, I do think that. I think that if the Seahawks do want to move back and the Bills move up to 16, they're taking Brian Thomas. But I think that if he is there at 17, it's a slam dunk pick for them.
There's
Let's
some
go back.
concerns about his shoulder injury, but I'm not. I don't think that's going to be a problem. It sounds like it's a pretty minor injury, and he should be ready to go by week 1. So I don't think a small injury like that is going to cause a guy like Brian Thomas to tumble too far.
It's usually the injuries we don't hear about. It's the
Mhm.
injuries we don't hear about that show up all of a sudden on draft night, where it's someone that has, an underlying condition that we didn't know about, or a really bad X-rays that never came to light during the process. And that's like the
Mhm.
one thing that we find out about on draft night. The ones that you hear before, you're just like, yeah, we're concerned about his shoulder. Okay, a team's still going to probably take him. Like, that's been thought about this whole time. Let's do a quick recap here, okay? At 9, the Bears go with Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. At 10, the Jets take Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. 11, Titans go with Talise Fuaga, the offensive tackle. At 12, Denver goes with Laiatu Latu, the edge rusher. 13, the Raiders get the what are we going to call it, Dave? The wackiest pick of the draft?
Sure.
Why not?
Wackiest,
Why not?
wonkiest.
Wacky wonky. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback here, goes a bit higher than maybe some of us expect. At 14, the New Orleans Saints take Troy Fautanu for the offensive line. 15, Colts go with Quinion Mitchell, corner. At 16, the Seahawks take the edge rusher Jared Verse. And then at 17, Brian Thomas to the Jaguars. They can get their wide receiver to replace Calvin Ridley. Now, we are going to get to our next pick here, 18 for the Cincinnati Bengals. But before we do that, I want to let you guys know we've got a draft sale promo going on here at Football Guys. The NFL draft, to me, and I don't know about you, Dave, it's to me, that's the start of the fantasy football season. We now know that there are going to be new players on teams affecting the fantasy value of players. And for me, that's what I want to start doing my research. And so this week, we've got 10% off Football Guys subscriptions this week. The Elite subscription is going to give you rankings and tools for fantasy, Dynasty, IDP, auction, best ball. I mean, what more could you want? We're giving you the one-stop shop for everything. You get started early, you win your league, you save money. That's a win-win-win right there. The offer is going to expire Monday, April 29th. So make sure you'll find that link in the description down below for this show. Save your money, win your league, do it with Football Guys. All right, Dave, let's go to pick 18 here, where I'm on the clock for the Cincinnati Bengals. And boy, do they need some offensive line help. It feels like they have needed offensive line for years and years and years. And here we go. At pick 18, Olu Fashanu is going to be the guy that I'm going to go with here. This was, I think, for a while, a lot of people's offensive tackle one. He was being talked about as the guy that was likely going to be going in the top 5. And just as the process has gone on, there's been some things, whether it's been tape or testing or just the rise of other players, that we're seeing him fall down a little bit. But if the Bengals can get a player of his caliber that can really play on either side and just become an instant starter on day one at pick 18, I am all about that. You are now on the clock at 19 with the Rams.
And this is another guy, Fashanu, who might go 10 picks earlier to Tennessee.
Yep.
I mean, we had him fall in here, but who knows? And this next guy that I'm going to talk about, I think Rams fans are going to get really excited about. 10 years ago, Aaron Donald fell into their lap, sliding a little bit. They ended up with a Hall of Famer. He retires this year, and Byron Murphy is a guy that realistically we could be talking about as top 5, top 10 pick. He's got that sort of talent, but if he ends up falling here to 19, you know, it's impossible to fill Aaron Donald's shoes, but Byron Murphy is great at what he does. So I think that going out and getting him at 19 makes a ton of sense here. So yeah, I'm not thinking this one through too much, you know, bringing in that interior defensive lineman to fill in the gap that has just been vacated by the retirement of Aaron Donald.
All right, we got it locked in. Byron Murphy goes to the Rams at pick 19. I'm on the clock with the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 20. And wide receiver would have been juicy. If Brian Thomas falls, I think that's probably where they go. I think there might be a couple of talks about wide receiver here, but I don't know if there's a guy that the Steelers want to take at 20. I think there are definitely players they can get in the second round, like a Ricky Pearsall, who I think would be just a phenomenal fit to kind of take over that Deontay Johnson role. But here, the Steelers have kind of shown their cards over their years, and it's give us the big, strong, fast Georgia guys. And they did this last year with Broderick Jones, who I think they can move over to left tackle. Amarius Mims is a guy who can start at right tackle. He's got very limited experience, but he is an absolute athletic freak. And to me, offensive line is one of those things that the Steelers draft well and coach well, just like they've done with wide receivers for years. And if you can get 2 bookend tackles from a program that has just been lights out with their offensive line over the years, I'm all for that. Amarius Mims is the guy that, like, I think some people might even have him as their offensive tackle number 2. I know Danny Kelly had him up really, really high in his rankings. Another guy that might also even go in the top 15 just based on his size, athleticism, and potential alone. These guys with the 8 starts in college, that's nuts. That's absolutely nuts to consider drafting them in the first round. But there are teams GMs, coaches that believe that they can fix them, that they can prop them up. They love that potential. That's the kind of thing that gets people fired, but it's also the kind of thing that wins championships for teams. All right, Dave. I don't know how this happened, but somehow you got pick 21 for my Miami Dolphins. So, yeah, don't mess it up.
And I deferred to you on this one. I said, what are you hearing out of Miami? Because there are quite a few needs that Miami has this year: interior offensive line, defensive tackle. They need to beef up that edge a little bit. And you wanted to go with Graham Barton and said that that there's been a drumbeat out of Miami that they are pretty interested in him. When you look right now on the interior offensive line, they've got Isaiah Wynn, Aaron Brewer, Robert Jones. They can certainly shore that up a little bit by bringing in a guy like Graham Barton. So do you think that's the pick? And if it is the pick, would you be happy with that, Alfredo?
I think that's one of three possible guys. I do think that any of the defensive tackles like Johnny Newton
Yeah.
or Byron Murphy is very possible to replace Christian Wilkins. I do still think edge rusher is a possibility, but Graham Barton. So this is the guy that he's played tackle at Duke. I think he's going to be a good fit at guard at the next level. He's just got the speed and the ability to get out on some of those outside zone runs and to pull and to get to that second level, get his hands on linebackers. He doesn't necessarily have the same kind of anchor or long arms that you want out of a tackle. And I think he ends up being a perfect fit at guard. Now, Jackson Powers Johnson is the other guy that could definitely do that. He can play guard as well.
Mhm.
I think the talk of Miami going for center likely doesn't happen just because of Brewer, the guy that they signed in free agency. He's been good at center. But yeah, Graham Barton, I think he's a good fit. He's a really good player. He's one of those guys. I think it's a match made in heaven for them. That puts us here. Pick 22, the Eagles, who, I mean, they basically only ever do two things: draft a Georgia player or draft an Alabama player.
If it ain't broke,
And
don't fix it.
yeah. And I don't see them going with Adonai Mitchell here out of Georgia. So the
Especially after they
Alabama,
just gave that extension to Devonta Smith. They've got AJ
yeah,
Brown under contract. They got a lot of money tied up at receiver right now.
yeah, yeah. And I think this might be the year where they're finally addressing the cornerback position. They've done it a little while back. I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold out of Alabama, a guy who some people might also be considering as the cornerback one in this class, who, I mean, there are rumors that could be flip flopped where he could be going at 15 or in the top 10 instead of Quinyon Mitchell. So, Terrion Arnold, and this is what the Eagles do, man. Like they just sit back and get really good players every year. It's super frustrating, but the rich get richer. Dave, pick 23, finally up. The Giants are cashing in on this trade that they made. Who are they going with?
And Giants fans, I think, would feel pretty good about this if they can turn pick 6 into getting Malik Nabers. Well, pick 6, a third rounder and a fifth rounder. If they can turn that into Malik Nabers and then Cooper DeJean, they're addressing two of
Ooh,
their biggest needs here.
Jason
DeJean is a guy.
Sehorn. I'm just going to blurt out white corners that were on the Giants.
Keep going. How many more do we got? Because I think that's the
That's
end of the
it.
list.
That's all I got.
But this guy has just been testing off the charts for his athleticism. And like I said, it's a need for the Giants. It's weird, when you do these PFF mock draft simulators, Cooper DeJean, I think they have him listed as like the 8th player off the board or something like that. I don't think we see him go quite that high, but I think this is a pretty good spot for him if he falls into the mid-20s.
Yeah, I'm with that. I like it a lot. Let's go back to the Fat Boys because Dallas needs an offensive lineman. They could go with the running back. Wide receiver could be good too, actually, man. I just don't. It would be a very Jerry pick
For
to be like, we
just
want
a,
Xavier Worthy.
a peek behind the curtain, we did these picks yesterday, and are you doing what I'm doing right now? Like as you're about to announce the pick, like, ugh, I kind of wish I had picked this player instead because that's happened with me a few times.
A couple times where I'm like, this would have been so much spicier. You could have
Yeah.
done it for the content, man. But
It's
we
kinda
we took
crazy
this
that,
too
like,
serious.
one night's sleep just completely changes my thought process.
We took it
This
too
time of year,
serious.
we
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 were
think
we were
too much.
really yeah, like we were eating our vegetables way too much. We're like, what does this team need? This makes sense. This is a great value here. Like, no, man, like have some fun, do something stupid. It's the draft. That's what we do. Especially Dallas. They would 100% go with one of the Texas receivers
I
here.
regret
Worthy
taking
or
Joe
Mitchell.
Alt for the Chargers instead of Blake Corum. I regret it.
That
Would have been
at 5
so much more fun to talk about.
at 5 Blake Corum. All right, let's go. So 24 with the 24th pick, Dallas Cowboys, I'm gonna go with JC Latham for them. They just need the offensive line help. You lose Tyron Smith. I know that they're going to be moving Tyler Smith, the young guy that they drafted, they're moving him to left tackle, and you can plug in J.C. Latham over to right tackle, and you give yourself. I keep using this term bookend tackles for the Cowboys for Dak. I think there's a lot to figure out there, and whether Dak's going to be your quarterback going forward or not, you still need to have a good offensive line. And no matter who the running back is, if you do go with a Jonathan Brooks in the second round, or you do go with someone else, you still need that offensive line. Wide receiver, I think they're fine being able just to kind of push through there with CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks. They got our boy Jake Ferguson at tight end. They're making moves. They're making moves, but offensive line definitely a sore spot for the Cowboys. So JC Latham for them there. Dave, that puts you and the Packers on the clock at pick 25. Oh wait, before we do that, let's just do a little quick recap, and then I'll get you. So pick 25. Start thinking. Let's do the recap. Pick 17, like we did, Jacksonville Jaguars. They went with Brian Thomas. 18, Cincinnati Bengals go Olu Fashanu. 19, Los Angeles Rams, Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle. 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers go with Amarius Mims, offensive lineman. 21, Miami goes with Graham Barton, offensive line. 22, Philly goes with Terry and Arnold, the corner. 23, New York Giants go with Jason Sehorn, Cooper DeJean, corner. And then at 24, the Dallas Cowboys go with JC Latham. All right, so now we're on the home stretch. The final 8 picks here. Dave, pick 25. Green Bay Packers are on the clock. What are they doing?
I think, and a lot of people aren't even really addressing this as a need because they have all of these guys that are kind of just doing what they need to do, but I think they should go wide receiver here. But we have seen historically that the Packers just
Ooh,
don't take first round
wow.
wide receivers. And I think it would make so much sense for them to add that guy. I hate throwing around the term alpha, but right now it seems like they just have a plethora of wide receiver twos. And I think that there would be some good wide receivers here. But like I said, historically, we've seen that just isn't a position that they like to invest first round picks into. So right now, if you look last year, they had a great pass rush with Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. The defense really surprised a lot of people, and I think they continue to build on that strength. And looking right now, Johnny Newton is still on the board, defensive tackle out of
Yeah.
Illinois. They do need some help on the interior defensive line, and I think that if he falls to 25, it's such a good pick for the Packers. As a Bears fan and an Illini fan, I would absolutely hate to see this happen, but it just makes so much sense for them to grab Johnny Newton if they can.
And that it's actually a very unpackers like pick because they love the height, weight, speed guys. And
Mm.
Johnny Newton is a little undersized. But when a player is just really good, you take them. And if there's one thing we know the Packers love, it's addressing that front seven on defense. They absolutely love getting as many defensive linemen, as many pass rushers, and to have a guy that can win the pass rush from the inside. You start pairing him with Lucas Van Ness and some of these other guys they have in the front seven. I mean, yeah, that's what gets the Packers over the hump. I don't know if they necessarily need the wide receiver, like you're saying. I think that we're going to see some good production out of Dontavian Wicks this year.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
do
They've done
want to
that
see.
forever with like they just patch these guys together like a bunch
Yeah,
of day 2 and day 3 picks and they make it work,
I think they
but
have enough. I
yeah,
think they have enough though. Like I don't necessarily think like they need to go and you got Christian Watson. You don't need another Christian Watson. We got Christian Watson at home. You don't go and draft Adonai Mitchell for that.
right.
I don't know. I don't know that I see that. But I love this pick for the Packers. I think it's a great one. I think that helps them be contenders in the NFC. That brings the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up at pick 26. And for them, listen, the Buccaneers secondary was atrocious last year. And I'm staring at a couple of cornerbacks here that, listen, Nate Wiggins might be like 135 pounds, but the dude can ball. The dude is really good. And I was torn here between which corner I might take, whether it was going to be Nate Wiggins or Kool-Aid McKinstry for the Buccaneers. I think if I was doing it again, I might have swapped and I might have gone a different way. But in the original picks we made, I went Nate Wiggins, and I'm going to stick with that. So pick 26, Nate Wiggins to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He can start day one, great ball skills. Dude just got to get a couple protein shakes. He'll be fine. Pick 27, Cardinals, you're up, Dave.
Yeah, now we saw Jonathan Gannon get brought in last offseason, and he was kind of inheriting a team that didn't have their QB1 as Kyler Murray was coming off of that ACL tear. We never really saw the team's identity shake out last year.
Yep.
I think now they kind of give Jonathan Gannon a bit longer of a leash and allow him to build out this offense a little bit. We saw earlier in the draft, they took Marvin Harrison Jr., and here I think they shore up the offensive line with Jackson Powers Johnson, JPJ. This guy that you talked about potentially Miami having an eye on a few picks earlier, but it makes sense for Arizona here to beef up that offensive line. And I think this is what you really need to see Kyler Murray take that step forward. I mean, he's been great, but has yet to have a 4,000-yard passing season. Has correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think he's made the playoffs yet in his career. He's really looked great, outside of the structure of the offense with the highlight-worthy plays, and he's had some seasons where he's looked like he was going to have really prolific passing numbers that have been derailed by injuries. Still relatively young, just 26 years old. If they can add a strong offensive lineman like JPJ, if they can add that alpha wide receiver one in Marvin Harrison, I think we can see Kyler Murray take a huge step forward. And that's why, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think this is what they're going to focus on is beefing up the offense this year. So if the draft does shake out this way, where they bring in JPJ and Marvin Harrison Jr., I'll say it again. I think Kyler Murray is going to instantly start shooting up dynasty rankings. So there's about a 2 or 3 day window here that as soon as we are done recording the show, I'm going to open up my sleeper app and I'm going to be sending out as many trade offers as I can for Kyler Murray.
So let's take a look at it then, because I agree with you. And by the way, like this would be one of those things where the Cardinals win the draft because when you make your quarterback more comfortable, when you make things better for your quarterback, your star quarterback, you win the draft. Like that's just how that goes. But if we're looking at the dynasty quarterbacks, like let's see where we would put Kyler with Jackson Powers Johnson, with Marvin Harrison Jr., because you got Josh Allen at 1,
Yeah.
right? You got Patrick Mahomes at 2,
Yep.
some
CJ Stroud,
combination of CJ Stroud, Lamar
Lamar
Jackson,
Jackson.
Jalen Hurts,
Yep.
Joe Burrow. And
I
so
think,
that gives you 6 quarterbacks there.
yeah.
Now all of a sudden we're getting into Caleb Williams territory, Anthony Richardson. Is it Caleb Richardson, Kyler? Is that where we're at? Is Kyler quarterback 9 even with all these additives? Or are we willing to put Kyler ahead of Richardson or ahead of Caleb? I don't know
Well,
that I am.
I do my rankings a little bit differently. I kind of bucket them in similar tiers, not necessarily tiers, but kind of what they do best. And I
Right.
have my Josh Allen in a tier by himself. I have my proficient passing tier, which is Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert. And then I have my elite rushing upside tier. And in there, I would prefer all of these guys ahead of Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert because of what they bring to the table. And I have it Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray.
Okay. So if let's just open
So
that up a
to
little
add
bit
to add a
more.
number to it, since that's what
Well,
we're looking for, one,
let's put
two,
it 1 to
three,
1,
four,
right?
five, six. Kyler Murray's like QB 7 ish.
Okay, because that was going to make me like ask the question if you prefer the rushing guys over the less the more stationary guys. So it's like Kyler Murray versus Joe Burrow. Who would you rather have in Dynasty?
Kyler Murray.
Okay, there we are. There we are. I don't know that I'm there, but there you are on your island by yourself, and I'm waving as I drive by on my boat. All right, pick 28. Buffalo Bills are up. And I think this is the pick that everyone wants. I think this is the pick that the Bills want. This is the pick that we want. And here you go, everybody. Adonai Mitchell, pick number 28 to the Buffalo Bills. I think that they are going to be getting another George Pickens type player. This is a guy who can win uncontested catches. I think he's a bit of a better route runner than Pickens ever was coming out of Georgia. There's absolutely a guy who's an incredible athlete. I think that you want to expand on like what he's actually going to be good at, what is going to be his role, because he's not going to slot directly into a Stephon Diggs role. He's not slotting directly into a Gabe Davis role for the Bills.
Uh,
I think it's figuring out what he's going to be good at. Adonai's not just a run in a straight line type of guy like Gabe Davis. I mean, there is some of
but
that
I
to
think you
his
might see
game.
that kind of his rookie season. Like as he develops, you might see him kind of take on that role a little bit, maybe.
I think that's what we're all defaulting to. I think that we're defaulting to that because that's what we want for the Buffalo Bills, but I don't know that's necessarily where we're at or where they are at. So I'm going to Adonai Mitchell here, pick 28 for the Bills. Dave, you're on the clock at pick 29 for the Lions.
Pick 29, you talked about potentially going with this guy for Tampa Bay at 26, and this just feels like such a Detroit pick. Kool-Aid McKinstry, they need a cornerback desperately, and this is a very talented quarterback dropping to them at 29. So this is another one I didn't have to think twice about when I was on the clock with 29. Kool-Aid McKinstry still on the board. Very, very easy pick for the Lions here if it falls this way.
Also, just a fun name, Kool-Aid McKinstry. What's up? Like, that's awesome. All right, pick 30.
Oh,
Baltimore Ravens are on the
oh,
clock.
this is my dream pick right here. I hope you go the way that I want you to go with this one.
Well, I mean, you already know,
I
so
know.
don't act like you don't know.
We have, like,
I w
shown and unshown the magic so many times in this show already.
Yeah,
Alfredo, here I am
we
sitting at the edge of my
suck at that.
seat. Who are you gonna take at 29?
You're crushing it, pal. You're crushing it right now. I'm not gonna lie though.
This is actually pick
When we
30.
Yeah, you're doing a terrible job. When I was sitting here thinking about this pick, I was leaning heavily into offensive line, and I was leaning heavily into Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. And you just kept texting and saying, "Oh my god, please take this guy. It's such a Ravens pick.
It is.
Do
They
it. It's such
love
a
these
Ravens
guys.
pick."
They love these guys. These, like, just athletic freaks that they can play all over on defense. Tell me this isn't the most Ravens pick imaginable.
Which, by the way, the Ravens could also just go ahead and draft another wide receiver. Like, I would not be shocked if all of a sudden they just go Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas. It would not shock me one bit. However, and I went and I did the Twitter thing. It's Twitter, by the way, not X. And I start looking up, player name, Ravens. And boy, do they want him. Boy, are their fans clamoring for him. We're going with Chop Robinson for the Baltimore Ravens. Dave, you
Yeah.
get your wish. You get what you want. All right. You were very excited about this. Like, what makes you say that Chop Robinson is the quintessential Ravens pick at pick 30?
Because they like these guys that are just dripping with athleticism. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I know he was one of the most athletic guys at the combine this year. Relative athletic score off the charts, and that's what the Ravens go for. Now, you talk about potentially going after a wide receiver. I was just looking over the last, I think it was 15 or 20. I can't remember how far back I was looking, but the Ravens have drafted more wide receivers in the first round than any other team, and they haven't been that good at drafting first round wide receivers. So are they going to keep going back to the well? I mean, this is a team that we're
That
talking
can't
about.
stop them. They don't get that's the meme with the
Yeah,
little girl from Arthur. Like, that sign can't stop me because I can't read. Like, that's the
exactly.
rave. They don't care. They're
And like
gonna do what they
you
want.
look in history, like Rashad Perriman, Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. Like Zay Flowers, we like him, but we also like Rashad Bateman after his rookie season, and we like Marquise Brown after his rookie season. And these guys that are like on the precipice of breaking out, and it's never really happened. That I mean, if you're looking at that, the last four wide receivers they've drafted in the first round, and Zay Flowers is the guy that we're hanging our hat on as like their success. Zay Flowers is good. Don't get me wrong, but they haven't been all that successful at drafting first round wide receivers. So I think this is finally the year where they say, let's stop trying to do this. They've done it a
I
lot in the last 5 years.
I don't know. I think that if AD Mitchell was at 30 for them, they're taking him.
Ugh.
I think that if their board would be AD Mitchell, probably the tackle Tyler Guyton, and then Chop Robinson. But I did this for you because I love and care about you.
I mean, we hear
So,
it like all the time. Like Lamar Jackson just needs better weapons. The Ravens are trying. They're like really trying. They just aren't hitting.
all right, you're up. Pick 31, San Francisco 49ers. The team with a lot of weapons. Maybe one of their weapons moves. Do you think that
No,
this is going to be the time that they finally trade Brandon Ayuk? You already said no.
no. And I said
Um,
no last week, and I'm going to say no again. And I saw you ran a Twitter poll this morning where like 44% of people think Brandon Ayuk is getting traded on draft night. I don't think he's one of them. I think they'd rather take, a late day 2 pick or an early day 3 pick for Debo than they would to trade up, give up, Brandon Ayuk, even if they're getting a first round pick in return. Brandon Ayuk is unbelievable, and I think that Kyle Shanahan knows it. I don't think they have any plans to move on from Brandon Ayuk.
So with your 31st pick, are you going to take a wide receiver?
No, I think they're staying put. I mean, this is a team with Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. They have enough offensive weapons, and their offensive line, for as good as it is getting old. So we've thrown his name around a few times. Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma, bringing an offensive tackle that could hopefully be the guy of the future. This is what good teams do: is they draft best player available, and I think right now Tyler Guyton is the best player available. They don't have an immediate need for him right now, but he's a guy that they can draft, kind of let develop, and be that guy that can kind of take over potentially midway point this season, next year. They don't have to bog themselves down with any more big offensive line contracts if they've got a rookie like Guyton.
That brings me to our final pick here in the draft. And I brought in a ringer. I brought in a special source for this that I went to for this pick.
Andy Reid?
Daniel Harms.
Oh,
No, God, if I knew Andy Reid, I wouldn't be here talking to you. God, that show would be so much better. No, I went to Daniel Harms, our resident Chiefs fan and Chiefs prognosticator. He does tons of film reviews on these rookies, and one of the best draft guys I know. If you don't, go follow him, Daniel Harms, on Twitter. I believe it's at In Harm's Way 19.
it is.
Uh,
Yep.
but yeah, look at that off the top of the dome. So I went to him and I was like, "Listen, man, between these three guys, who do you think that your Chiefs would take?" And he put his stamp of approval on this pick. And we are going with Xavier Worthy for the Kansas City Chiefs at pick 32. And his reasoning was pretty sound in that the Chiefs, what they tend to do and what they like to do is they go after players that kind of fill the hole that was just left open. And they did that
Mm.
initially. They did that one time with Tyreek Hill. They've done that before. And they did that with running back, trying to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there. And the Chiefs are not afraid of just, let's keep picking these skill guys and fit them into a role that we need for our offense. And especially with everything up in the air right now with Rashee Rice, who will probably have some sort of suspension or punitary. That's not a word. Punitive actions. I'm just here making up words on pick
I'll say
32.
Adam Schefter this morning said that it's expected to be a multi-game suspension. So
So there you
take
go.
that for what you will.
So now, and you've got Marquise Brown, who's only on a 1-year deal. So now you've got a wide receiver core that went from being one of the worst in the league last year to having Rashee Rice, to having Marquise Brown, to having Xavier Worthy.
Woo!
They also lost Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So like there's a lot of places you could put these guys. And I think that if you're able to fit all three of those wide receivers on the field at once, with Travis Kelce in the middle of the field still, and Isaiah Pacheco running angry like he does, like he hates the earth, yeah, this Chiefs offense can absolutely still be really, really good. They don't even need the receiver. At this point, it's just them eating their dessert for no reason. They
That's
could
what I think.
probably go and probably should go offensive line.
Said they lost MVS. I think that's one of those addition by subtraction type of things. I don't think they're going to miss
No,
MVS
yeah,
all
I
that
mean
much.
like when a parent loses a child at the mall. Like that's what they did with MVS.
Technically, they still have Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. It's kind of funny. We don't
Gosh,
even mention them anymore. Like
too
former
soon.
first round pick, Sky Moore was like everybody's favorite sleeper last year. Now here we are a year later, just like they don't have any receivers, and we're talking about guys. It's funny how quickly those guys have fallen off. But I think it does make a ton of sense for them to bring in a guy like Xavier Worthy. I think that's another very obvious pick. If he's on the board at 32, that's who they go with. But hear me out. We didn't mock it this way, but man, would I love to see the Chiefs trade up, get into that 12, 13, 14, 15 spot if Brock Bowers is available, draft
I
Brock
don't think anyone's
Bowers.
doing that.
Oh,
Oh God, that would be absolutely nuts. I don't think
Brock
people
Bowers on
want
the
to
Chiefs
give
would
the
be
Chiefs
awesome.
anything.
Yeah, and we heard that. What was the trade that just recently went through? Was it Deontay Johnson that they were rumored? I know there was a team recently that just said that like they got, or no, it was Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs wasn't. Oh my God, I'm completely drawing a blank. There was a
But no, but
team.
like I get it.
The Chiefs were
Like
trying to make a trade, and the team that was negotiating basically said, "No, we're not doing that for the Chiefs."
right. And the thing is that you also know that the Chiefs are always going to be good. So the pick you're getting back in return, you're never saying that's a potential top 10 pick. You're saying that's pick 32 or that's pick 30 every year. You know it. So like, teams don't want to make deals with them. The Chiefs just kind of have to take what they can get in the final three picks of the first round every single year.
They
Uh,
keep hitting on
okay.
them outside of CEH a few years back. They've done pretty well so far.
Yeah. Ugh. CEH. Too soon. Well, Sky Moore too. But that's, yeah, not first round. Anyways, let's recap this first round really quick. And then, Dave, as I'm doing that, I want you to think of which team won the draft and what's going to be your favorite pick for fantasy football out of this. So at pick 1, the Bears go with Caleb Williams. Pick 2, Jayden Daniels to the Commanders. Pick 3, Patriots go with Drake Maye. 4, Cardinals get Marvin Harrison Jr. 5, Chargers go with Joe Alt. 6, the Vikings trade up, get JJ McCarthy. At 7, the Giants trade back and then trade up and take Malik Nabers. At 8, Dallas Turner goes to the Falcons. At 9, the Bears get Odunze. At 10, the Jets get Brock Bowers. At 11, Titans go with Talise Fuaga. 12, Broncos get Laiatu Latu. 13, Michael Penix goes to the Raiders. 14, another Washington Husky, Troy Fautanu goes to the Saints. At 15, Quinion Mitchell to the Colts. 16, Jared Verse to the Seahawks. 17, Jaguars take Brian Thomas Jr. At 18, Olu Fashanu to the Bengals. At 19, the Rams get Byron Murphy. 20, Amarius Mims goes to the Steelers. 21, Graham Barton to the Dolphins. 22, Terrion Arnold to the Eagles. 23, the Giants go with Cooper DeJean. At 24, Cowboys get JC Latham. 25, Jerzon Newton. Johnny Newton, excuse me. That's the proper way to say it, boys. 26, Nate Wiggins to the Bucks. 27, the Cardinals go with Jackson Powers Johnson. 28, Adonai Mitchell to the Bills. 29, Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Lions. 30, Chop Robinson to the Ravens. 31, Tyler Guyton to the Niners. And the 32, Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs. So, Dave, after going through all that,
well done, Alfredo. Reading through all 32 of those. That's a mouthful right there.
Yeah, and especially like Jackson Powers Johnson. What are you doing with 3 names, pal? All right, I needed to get some water. Dave, your favorite pick or the team that won the draft? I guess you can kind of go either way on this, but what was your favorite selection in this draft?
So I'd say the team that won the draft, if it does fall this way, where the Bears with their 2 top 10 picks can get Caleb Williams and Odunze, hard not to look at them as winners, but I feel like that's cheating. They're picking 101 and they've got another first round pick or another top 10 pick. It's pretty hard to mess that up. So the way this one shook out, we didn't do a ton of trades, but 2 of the trades that we did both involved the New York Giants. And I love the way this worked out for them. I think that if they can walk out of Thursday night with Malik Nabers and Cooper DeJean, that is just a slam dunk for New York fans. So looking at the team that potentially won this draft, I'd have to give it to the Giants.
I would be going with, and I love that pick for the Giants, by the way. I think that's a good one. I'd be going with the Cardinals here. I think that you are adding an all-pro wide receiver right out the gate, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a guy in JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, who can immediately plug in at center and help alleviate pressure up the middle on Kyler Murray. And like I said before, anything you do to make your quarterback better instantly makes the team a lot better. And in a division and that, what is that, NFC West right now, that the Rams don't have Aaron Donald. The Rams are really trying to piece things together. You got the Seahawks, who have a new coach. They might be good, but they also might still be on a learning curve. This is your time, Cardinals, where you can actually come up and start to compete for this division and be in the NFC race and actually make the playoffs. And I think anytime you're helping your quarterback, good move for the Cards. Now,
real quickly, if AD Mitchell, because I think so many mocks, especially with us fantasy nerds, we have so often AD Mitchell going to Buffalo, Xavier Worthy going to Kansas City.
Yep.
Are these guys getting drafted? The top 7 in dynasty drafts is pretty clear cut at this point. Would AD and Xavier Worthy, are they immediately picks 8 and 9 in dynasty rookie drafts if it falls this way? Like, you're taking them ahead of Brian Thomas, right? Like, I'd probably prefer AD Mitchell and Xavier Worthy with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes than I probably would with Brian Thomas with Trevor Lawrence.
I don't know. I don't know on that. I think I'm still willing to, because Josh Allen takes so many of the touchdowns away from his offense with his running ability. And I think that Dalton Kincaid is still going to be very much the top target earner there for the Bills. I think it's a coin flip at that point. I do think I like Brian Thomas a bit better than AD Mitchell. And I think that we can see a better version of Trevor Lawrence. So it's going to be some sort of, gobbledygook tier right there, where you're going to have a Brian Thomas, AD Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. I didn't really help or answer your question, but I'm
just
think
laughing.
that
You dropped a gobbledygook, so you're right. Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome, America. I think I might. Ugh, that's a tough one. That's a toughie. I don't know. I really
I'm
don't
tweeting
know.
this out as a poll right now on Twitter. And
Yeah,
I'm
let's see what
asking,
America thinks.
pick 17, Brian Thompson to Jacksonville. Pick 28, Adonai Mitchell to Buffalo. Pick 32, Xavier Worthy to Kansas City. Who do you prefer in Dynasty? Really interested to see how this shakes out and what the public opinion would be.
What do you think the public's going to say? I think they're going to go with Xavier Worthy.
I think they're going to go with Adonai Mitchell.
Oh,
Follow at Dave Kluge. Keep up with the results over the next 24 hours.
you can also follow me at the Pretend GM. I won't have any of the results, but just follow me anyways. Just recently passed 8,000 followers. What's up?
Ooh, congrats.
Well, Dave, thanks, man. Thanks. Big time for us. Big time. We got 100. We got our 100th episode coming up next week. We're going to be in Nashville for the NFL draft that's taking place in Detroit. But look at us. We're all getting together for a good strategic planning session. Gonna have a fun episode. It's gonna be myself, Dave, Jagger, Joey, all four of us on the mic, on the camera, having a lot of fun. So make sure you're subscribed to the show. You're watching on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. It's gonna be a big one, Dave. NFL draft right around the corner. That's it for us. We got through all 32 picks. We're going to see you guys next week. Next time we're going to be talking to you, we will be reacting to the first round of the NFL draft. Thank you all for listening all the way through. Yes,
live.
In person.
See you in a couple days, buddy.
Peace. See you guys next time. We're out. Adios.